The clink of glasses at my daughter's graduation dinner sounded like tiny bells, bright and proud. And then my husband stood up and turned all that joy into ash. We were in a candlelit ballroom in Santa Fe. Tables dressed in linen, little centerpieces of desert wildflowers glowing in amber light. Our daughter, Melissa, sat between her professors and friends, cheeks pink with happiness. I had spent all week fussing over place cards and photo boards, making sure every moment of her 4 years was honored. Daniel raised his glass and smiled the way he does when he wants a room to obey. To Melissa, he began, and everyone leaned in. Then he cleared his throat and said, in the same steady voice he used at business luncheons, "This is goodbye for me. I have found someone else." Silence took the room by the throat. Forks froze mid-air. A violinist in the corner stopped playing without realizing it. Across from me, Clara, his consultant, sat with her hands folded and her chin tilted just so, as if she had practiced this face in a mirror. Melissa blinked once, twice, as if the word goodbye needed translation. I felt the first wave of heat crawl up my neck, and then, oddly, it cooled. 30 years of marriage has a way of teaching you when to speak and when to move. I stood up slowly, smoothed the skirt of my blue dress, and felt the familiar weight of my purse against my hip. My voice came out calm, almost conversational. "Thank you for the heads up, Daniel." I slipped a white envelope next to his salad plate. He glanced at it with a confidence I knew too well, the kind that only cracks from the inside. I turned to Melissa, kissed her temple, and let my hand rest a second on her shoulder. "This is still your night," I whispered. "Do not let anyone steal it." Then I faced the room that had stopped breathing. "Please enjoy your dinner," I said. And I meant it. "Have a wonderful evening." I walked toward the tall doors, feeling every eye on my back, hearing a tide of whispers rise and break against the chandeliers. In the hallway, the air was cooler. I could finally pull a full breath into my lungs. The doors burst open behind me. "Elaine," Daniel called. No toast in his voice now, only panic. He held the envelope like it had burned his fingers. "What is this? What did you do?" I pressed the elevator button and watched the light glow. The envelope held the beginning of a plan I had been building quietly, patiently, for months. "You will find out soon enough," I said. The door slid open, and for the first time that night, I felt the floor steady under my feet. When I stepped into the elevator that night, leaving Daniel shouting in the hallway, I wasn't a broken wife. I was a woman holding 6 months of secrets. 6 months of late nights spent in silence, following the threads he thought I was too blind to see. It started with little things. Receipts from restaurants in Albuquerque slipped between bills in his jacket pocket. A perfume I didn't wear clinging to the passenger seat of his truck. Withdrawals from our savings account that didn't match anything we had talked about. I worked as a librarian in Santa Fe for over 30 years. And if there's one thing I know, it's how to notice patterns. The way ink changes when someone tries to cover a date. The way names repeat in property records. The way truth hides in footnotes. So I began keeping my own notes. A spiral-bound notebook, plain cover, hidden in the back of my desk drawer at the library. Every transfer I spotted went in there. Dates, amounts, the bank branches he used. I photocopied the credit card statements and marked the charges I knew weren't ours. Jewelry stores, hotel stays, spa weekends, none of them for me. One afternoon, while he pretended to be meeting with contractors, I drove to Albuquerque myself. I parked down the street from a sleek glass condo building and sat with my hands on the steering wheel until my fingers went numb. Then I watched Daniel walk out with Clara, laughing like a man who had never worried about a mortgage, never shared late-night bowls of soup with me at our kitchen table. That night, while he slept, I opened the fireproof box in our closet, where we kept old documents. There it was, the marital trust agreement he had insisted I sign when his uncle left him on that stretch of land near Taos. Daniel had been so proud of his foresight, so determined to protect what was his. Buried in the dense paragraphs was one line he must have forgotten. If either spouse committed infidelity, all claims to joint assets would be forfeited. No expiration. No loopholes. I read that line 3 times until the words stopped swimming. My hands were trembling, but my mind had never been clearer. He thought he had been preparing for betrayal, but he had written his own downfall years ago. From that moment, my quiet investigation turned into preparation. I scanned the agreement, uploaded it to a secure drive, and contacted an attorney recommended by my brother Mark. Together, we built a case, bank transfers, photos, recorded conversations I captured when Daniel left his phone unlocked in the kitchen. Piece by piece, I assembled the story he had written in lies. On the morning of Melissa's graduation, while he rehearsed his smug little toast in the mirror, I was at the county courthouse, filing divorce papers and an emergency financial injunction. By Monday, the records would be public. By then, his smirk would be gone. Daniel thought he was orchestrating a grand exit. What he didn't know was that the stage was already set and he wasn't holding the script anymore. The drive back to our adobe-style home on the edge of Santa Fe felt like moving through 2 lives at once. The desert dusk painted the mountains purple, the same view Daniel and I once admired together on quiet evenings. Now it felt like a backdrop for the end of everything. I parked in the gravel driveway, my headlights catching the wooden beams of the porch. The house looked the same, but inside, I knew nothing would ever be again. I pushed open the door, the familiar scent of mesquite still clinging to the air. For a moment, I let myself breathe in the memory of safety before turning on the lights. Upstairs, I checked the closet. Behind his heavy winter coats, exactly where I guessed, sat 2 suitcases, already packed. He was planning to walk out tomorrow morning, as if 30 years could be folded into luggage and wheeled into Clara's car. I laughed out loud, the sound sharp and foreign in our bedroom. Predictable, I thought. Daniel had always liked to believe he was clever, but he was as easy to read as any book on my library shelves. Hours later, I heard the slam of his car door in the driveway, followed by heavy footsteps pounding into the house. "Elaine!" His voice cracked with fury. He stormed into the living room, face red, the envelope crumpled in his fist. "What is this? Divorce papers? On our daughter's graduation day? Have you lost your mind?" I sat calmly on the sofa, a cup of chamomile tea warming my hands, my laptop still glowing with legal documents I had been reviewing. I closed the lid and met his eyes. "No, Daniel, I found my mind. Maybe for the first time in years." He waved the papers like a flag. "You had no right. You're throwing away everything we built." "You already did that," I said quietly. "Every dinner, every hotel room, every stolen dollar you spent on Clara, that was you throwing it away." His shoulders sagged for just a moment. Then he straightened, sneering. "The agreement we signed back then, don't pretend it means anything now. It expired years ago. My lawyer will prove that." I leaned forward, calm but sharp. Section 14, subsection C. I read it 3 times today. The clause on fidelity is valid until the dissolution of marriage, regardless of years past. There is no expiration. The color drained from his face. He hadn't read it. Or maybe he had, and he never thought I would. "You can't do this to me," he whispered, almost begging now. 30 years. "Elaine, doesn't that mean something to you?" I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. With one tap, a recording played through the speaker. Daniel's voice filled the room. "Well, do it at the graduation dinner. Public humiliation will keep her quiet." Clara's laugh followed. and she has no idea about the money. His jaw fell open. The tea in my hand tasted sweeter than it ever had before. You planned my humiliation, Daniel, I said softly. But tonight, you discovered who was really planning. Daniel stormed out of the room after my recording finished, muttering curses I had never heard from his mouth before. The front door slammed, rattling the old glass panes. For the first time that night, the silence in the house felt like comfort instead of threat. I set my tea down, folded the divorce papers neatly on the coffee table, and exhaled. My phone buzzed a few minutes later. It was my brother, Mark, a retired state judge. He had always been the steady voice in our family. "Elaine," he said without preamble, "I heard about what happened at the graduation dinner. Melissa called me. Are you all right?" "I am better than I expected," I admitted. My voice trembled, not with fear but with the strange calm that comes after fire. Mark arrived 20 minutes later, his old pickup crunching across the gravel. When I opened the door, he wrapped me in the kind of hug that reminded me I wasn't alone. "I knew something was off," he said as we stepped inside. "I saw Daniel downtown 2 months ago, looking nervous with Clara on his arm. When I asked, he swore it was nothing." I shook my head. Nothing turned into stealing from our accounts. Nothing turned into tonight. We sat in the living room as I laid out everything, the copies of bank transfers, the photographs, the trust agreement. Mark's face hardened with every page. "He didn't just cheat, Elaine," he said finally. "He stole from his family. That clause you have is ironclad. You did the right thing filing early." Before I could reply, my phone lit up again. "Melissa." I hesitated. She should have been celebrating with her friends, not carrying the weight of her father's betrayal. I answered anyway. Her voice cracked with tears. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" My throat tightened. "Because it was your night, sweetheart. I didn't want his shadow on your achievement. I thought I could hold it back until after the party." "You should have told me," she whispered, and then louder, fiercer. "He used my college fund, didn't he?" I froze. "How do you know?" "I tried to access it last week. The account was nearly empty. I thought maybe there was some mistake." I closed my eyes, fury flooding my chest. Daniel hadn't just betrayed me. He had gambled our daughter's future for Clara's spa weekends. "Listen to me, Melissa," I said firmly. "I filed an injunction this morning. The court froze the accounts. He can't touch another cent. You will still have your future on the line," she sobbed, but I could hear the steel beneath it. "I am coming to see you tomorrow. Well, face him together." After I hung up, Mark leaned forward. "Elaine, you're not fighting this battle alone. Melissa's with you. I am with you. And when this hits the courts, Daniel's reputation will crumble faster than he imagines." For the first time all day, I felt something close to hope. Daniel thought he was the center of every story, but the truth was shifting. The family he tried to discard was already building a wall of truth against him. The next evening, twilight draped the desert sky in shades of copper and rose. Mark was still at my house, reviewing documents with me at the kitchen table, when headlights swept across the front windows. My stomach tightened. I didn't need to look. I knew it was Daniel. And he wasn't alone. A sharp knock rattled the door. Before I could answer, the door flew open. Daniel stormed in, his jaw set, and behind him Clara lingered, her heels clicking nervously against the wood floor. She wore an expensive silk blouse, her hair too perfectly styled for a casual visit. "You need to lift the freeze," Daniel barked, slapping the folded court papers onto the table. "This is madness. We can talk about this like civilized people." Mark stood, his frame still commanding despite his retirement. Civilized people don't humiliate their wives at their daughter's graduation party, he said evenly. Daniel ignored him and turned on me. Elaine, unlock the accounts. You've embarrassed me enough. I didn't flinch. 3 days. Daniel. The judge will decide then. Until that, the accounts remain exactly as they are. Clara stepped forward, her voice tight. 3 days? What accounts is he talking about? Daniel? His eyes flickered just for a second, but Clara saw it. She spun toward him. What accounts? You told me everything was joint. That we were building a future together. Daniel's lips thinned. It's not important right now. Not important? Clara's voice rose, trembling with outrage. How much money have you been hiding from me? The room went silent, every tick of the old clock on the mantel echoing like thunder. For the first time, I saw Clara's confidence crack. She wasn't the smug consultant anymore. She was a woman realizing she had been played. 2. Melissa arrived just then, still in her graduation dress, her eyes red from crying but blazing with fury. She stepped past Clara and faced her father head-on. How could you take my college fund? Dad? How could you steal my future? Daniel's shoulders slumped. Melissa, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, she snapped, her voice shaking. You said money was tight. So I worked 2 part-time jobs. I gave up study abroad because you told me we couldn't afford it. All while you were buying spa weekends and jewelry for her? She pointed at Clara, who now stood rigid, silent, her cheeks burning with shame. Daniel reached for her arm. Sweetheart, please. She pulled back like his touch burned. Don't call me that. You're not the father I thought you were. The words landed harder than any judge's gavel. Daniel's face crumpled, but Melissa didn't falter. She turned to me, tears streaking her cheeks. Mom, you were right to protect us. Don't give him a penny more. I placed my hand over hers, steady and certain. I won't. Daniel looked around the room at Mark's unflinching glare, at Clara's cold, questioning eyes, at Melissa's shattered trust. For once, he had no control. He slammed his fist against the table, then stormed out, Clara trailing behind him in stiff silence. The screen door banged shut. The night was suddenly quiet again. But I knew the storm was only gathering strength, and the courthouse would be the eye of it. 3 mornings later, I walked up the stone steps of the Santa Fe County Courthouse with my lawyer, Caroline Vega, a woman whose calm confidence was the armor I needed. The sky was gray, swollen with storm clouds, the kind of sky that promised a reckoning. I held my notebook pressed to my chest like a shield. Inside, the courtroom smelled faintly of old wood polish and nerves. The benches creaked as people shifted neighbors. Reporters, even a few of Daniel's business partners curious to watch the fall. Daniel entered with his lawyer, a young man in a too-big suit who looked like he had borrowed confidence along with his briefcase. Clara wasn't with him. That absence spoke louder than words. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s named Judge Martinez, called us to order. She skimmed the thick file Caroline had handed up earlier. Mr. Simode, Wilson, your wife has filed for divorce on the grounds of infidelity, supported by substantial financial documentation. Do you contest this? Daniel's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we believe the marital trust agreement in question expired. It was signed decades ago. Its relevance is null. Judge Martinez adjusted her glasses and began to read aloud from the document. Section 14. Subsection C. The clause of fidelity remains valid for the duration of the marriage and shall extend through dissolution proceedings in the event of divorce. She raised her eyes. I see no expiration date. Counsel, do you? The young lawyer flushed. Your Honor, surely after 30 years. Law is not measured in years. Counselor. Judge Martinez cut in. It is measured in words, and the words are clear. Daniel shifted in his seat, his knuckles white around the edge of the table. I watched him from across the room, remembering the smug smile he wore at Melissa's graduation dinner. That smile was gone now, replaced by the grimace of a man who realized the trap he had set was closing around him. Caroline rose smoothly. Your Honor, we also submit evidence of systematic money transfers from joint accounts into shell companies controlled by Mr. Wilson. Additionally, we have recordings made in the marital home where Mr. President Wilson discusses both his affair and his intention to humiliate my client publicly. The judge flipped through the exhibits, her expression growing colder with each page. This is thorough. Mrs. Parker, your background as a librarian serves you well. You document everything. A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the benches, quickly silenced by the gavel. Judge Martinez continued until the final hearing. Joint accounts will remain frozen. The marital home will remain in Mrs. Cleese Parker's possession as stipulated under the fidelity clause. Mr. Present. Wilson retains access to his personal account for basic needs. Final division of assets will be addressed after full financial discovery. Daniel exploded, slamming his palm on the table. This is unfair. I built our life. She's turning everyone against me. The judge's gaze could have cut stone. Mr. Present. Wilson, you signed this agreement. You chose your actions. The consequences are yours alone. Court adjourned. The gavel struck, echoing like thunder. I stood tall, my heart pounding, but my voice steady when I whispered to Caroline, one battle won. The war is nearly over. The ruling spread through Santa Fe faster than desert fire. By the next morning, whispers bloomed in coffee shops and at church steps. Daniel Parker, the developer with a glossy smile, had been caught cheating and stripped of his claims. His investors called, one by one, until their polite voices turned sharp. Deals he had bragged about for months collapsed overnight. The man who once thrived on handshakes and contracts was suddenly radioactive. I didn't gloat. Not out loud. But when I passed the shuttered office where his company logo had hung, I allowed myself a quiet breath of justice. Clara moved out of the Albuquerque condo within a week. A neighbor told a mutual acquaintance that she had screamed at Daniel in the parking lot about empty promises and empty accounts. She was gone before he could spin another lie. Melissa stayed close to me during those first weeks. She had always been strong, but betrayal from a father digs deep. Some nights she sat at the kitchen table, silent, her textbooks open but unread. I would bring her cocoa, set it down gently, and remind her, you are not defined by his choices. With Mark's encouragement, I began to consider a dream I had buried years earlier. Books and coffee, two things that had always soothed me. We found a small adobe storefront in Taos, its windows dusty, its beams sagging but strong. I saw potential. Potential for something that belonged only to me. The first time I unlocked the door, sunlight streamed across empty shelves, and for the first time in decades, I felt a rush of freedom. My notebook, once filled with evidence of Daniel's lies, now became filled with sketches of bookshelves, menus for pastries, ideas for author readings. Friends stopped by to help. Melissa painted signs. Mark brought in his old collection of history books to seed the shelves. Neighbors donated chairs and tables. The community that Daniel had underestimated became the foundation of something beautiful. Meanwhile, Daniel was reduced to renting a cramped apartment near the highway, far from the adobe home he once boasted about to his colleagues. I heard rumors he tried to win back investors, but no one trusted him anymore. He had spent years building castles in the air, and now he was choking on the dust when they fell. One evening, standing inside my half-finished cafe bookstore, the smell of fresh paint mingling with roasted coffee beans, I let myself smile. Daniel had tried to steal my dignity in public. Instead, he had handed me the key to my own future. The final hearing landed on a date that might have once held, meaning our 31st wedding anniversary. Instead of dinner and champagne, Daniel and I faced each other across a courtroom bench. He looked smaller than I remembered, his suit hanging loose, his hair streaked with stress. Clara was nowhere to be seen. She had already vanished into someone else's life. Judge Martinez wasted no time. She reviewed the financial discovery Caroline and I had provided, every transfer, every receipt, every text message I had cataloged. Daniel's lawyer tried once more to argue that the agreement was outdated, but the judge silenced him with a single tap of the gavel. The language is plain. Fidelity was breached. Assets will be divided accordingly. Her ruling was firm. I retained the family home, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our investments. Daniel left with his personal belongings, his dwindling personal account, and a reputation in ruins. When the gavel struck for the last time, I felt a chapter close so decisively that even the air in the courtroom seemed lighter. Outside, the sky was bright, New Mexico, blue, the kind that stretches endlessly across the desert. Mark hugged me. Melissa slipped her arm through mine. For the first time in years, I didn't feel weighed down. I felt unchained. Weeks later, I opened the doors to my cafe bookstore in Taos. The smell of roasted beans mingled with the sight of rows of books, each spine a promise of new beginnings. Neighbors filled the chairs. Melissa poured lattes behind the counter, her laughter carrying like music. This was my life now, not perfect, not easy, but mine. And here is the lesson I want to leave you with. Betrayal can break you only if you let it. I thought my silence kept the family together, but silence only gave Daniel more power. What saved me wasn't anger or revenge, it was patience, planning, and finally believing that I deserved better. If you are watching this and carrying your own hidden hurt, know this: you are stronger than you think. One clause, one truth, one moment of courage can change everything. Tell me, what lesson would you take from my story? And where are you watching from? I might share your comment in our next video. When I look back on everything, I realize the real turning point was not the betrayal itself, but the moment I decided to stop living quietly in his shadow. For years, I thought keeping peace meant keeping silent. But silence allowed lies to grow. By trusting my instincts, preparing carefully, and refusing to be humiliated, I reclaimed my life. The pain of losing a marriage was real, but what I gained, freedom, dignity, and the courage to start again, was far greater. Today, as I unlock the door to my cafe and watch my daughter smile again, I know betrayal did not end me, it pushed me to begin anew. If you carry a hidden hurt, remember, you are stronger than you think, and your future is still yours to build. Now, I want to hear from you. What lesson do you take from my story? And which city are you watching from?